Okay, this is Nick again, talking about his stuff. Obviously, if you like the content you see, do all the stuff which all the influencers tell you to do with YouTube videos, you know, like favorite, subscribe, rate, share, and all that stuff, because it's good for me, it's nice, it's fun. I've done my first video, which was, I think, probably not very well delivered. I think I was a bit rambly there, and I'm sorry about that. But I think I'm trying to get my message across about how we should be focusing our lives and our minds if we're going to engage with this subject called magic, and what we should be doing to try and develop some attempt to have some experiences which can then show us something about the way the world works or the way that nature works and so on and so forth. At this time in my life, it's very strange, really. Now, I first moved physically into the magical type communities when I was 19. And I'm now 49. Okay, so I've moved through a 30-year journey, and I'm now meeting people these days about my own age, and they say they are lapsed, right? Lapsed pagans, lapsed magicians, lapsed witches, and some say they've lost their faith. I think this is wrong. I think that the moment you ever say the words, it works, right? You should be dedicating your entire life to this. The promises of magic from various different schools of thought include the ability to have some form of omnipotence, the ability to restore health, the ability to reduce crime in a location. The promises of magic from various different sources are in fact intense. Obviously the question is, are those promises 100% accurate? To which, in some cases, we would have to say no. That is true. But that certainly should not stop us from looking at the various different apparent forces and how they operate based upon experience and research, and to see basically what's really going on there. And also what's really important is to try and think about what people were trying to achieve when they first got involved with all this stuff, and whether it was the right path for them. I mean, you could assume that if someone's suddenly become a lapsed magician, right, or gradually become a lapsed magician, that's because they were looking for something in magic that wasn't there originally, and therefore they thought, well, this is not useful to me, and they stopped doing it, and they got on with a job in telesales, or working in accountancy, or cleaning toilets for a living. I don't know what it is they want to do, or just getting on with their relationship life and so on and so forth, because all that other stuff becomes much more important to them. And of course, that's right and that's true and that's good, but it's also partially the fault of the original explanations of what magic is. Alright, it's the culture, the superstition, the fear, and all that stuff which gets loaded into all of this crap, which doesn't really help anybody to think through what could be happening, what this actually is, and what could actually be useful. And then of course you've got all the religious cult bullshit being thrown on, and individuals in those cults trying to have power over other people because it gives them some kind of weird sadomasochistic kick to hurt people. And there's a clusterfuck associated with this. It's not wholesome. So the messiness of human psychology interferes with the progression towards anything good in the world. I mean, if you really feel that this magic or this witchcraft will give you a certain level of omnipotence, or will provide you with some kind of strange supernatural gifts and powers, surely these are things which could be hypothetically useful to you in the future, and you would carry on studying and practicing them, just practicing doing your stretches and your yoga and the rest of that prior to doing a marathon or something. It's just something you'd want to just carry on doing for a long time. But no, a lot of these people are just stopping in their tracks. I think that's wrong. And I think that's wrong on lots of different levels. It's wrong firstly because you yourself have lived your life as an example for a period of time, okay? And you're communicating your message through your lifestyle and through what you say and through what you do, and hey presto, you go back on it, which bit was the truth and which bit was the lie? What was it that you were saying, and what was it that you were thinking before, and what is it that you're thinking now? Right? I mean, the message that I would give you is that think carefully about what it is you're trying to achieve when you want to try and get involved in all of this weird, wonderful, freaky shit. Because you've got to assess as to whether you'll actually get it. Right? People will promise you all kinds of things. They will promise all kinds of wonderful things or scary things, or they will present themselves to you as being a really like powerful, scary person, and hey presto, that's like not really good because they're not. And it's worrying that there are people in the world who can actually just like go around talking like that when they can't do anything. You know, that's an actual like there's insanity there going on. It's not good. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. But if you were to get into all of this stuff, what would you be doing it for? It's hard to say. You will have some kind of experiences which will demonstrate the objective spiritual reality. You will have some kind of experiences which will demonstrate the ability, under some weird conditions, to communicate at a distance with people, and you will have the ability to develop some variety of perceptual empathy for other people, which could then be used in a, inverted commas, divinatory way with enough experience and practice over the passage of time. But I don't think you can necessarily give yourself a clear-cut path towards a particular clear-cut goal which is there to save you from problems within your life. It's not ethical to say that magic can bring your lover back, or that magic can provide you with money, or that magic will like sort out your health or anything. And that's why we, again, have to move away from the phrase it works as a culture, as a society, as a world. I mean, I can go to the health food shop, and I can go there and I can say, like, I've got this challenge I've got at the moment, can you recommend anything? And they might say, well, there's this stuff here which can be very useful, and some people have got some success from it. Or this is this, and this is how it's supposed to operate. It will take this long to try and have some kind of effect. Alright? They don't turn around to me and say, it works, it works. Alright? So if, even in the supplement shop, even in the doctor's like surgery, doctors don't tell me they're going to cure me. Right? The supplement shop doesn't say, it works, just buy this, it'll solve your problems. But yet, people who are involved in witchcraft and magic and supernaturalism and spiritualism often do. Nick, stop ranting for a bloody moment and give these people what they want. Okay, I'll do it. So what should we be thinking about if you're talking about developing some variety of perception and skill, and therefore to build up the ability to be able to do weird stuff in the future and just to see what happens? Okay? I believe that the sequence of events should start with mindfulness. We're not talking about you doing something, then a week later, all of a sudden you're, Merlin or some shit like that. We're talking about a very long progress of you going through personal change and thinking things through in different ways and having experiences and building up an understanding slowly. Looking at the phenomena bit by bit as if you're seeing it for the first time. Because let's say, like when I was 4 years old and I saw that ghost, I was looking at that for the first time because I had had no one telling me that ghosts exist. Alright? I was just experiencing a phenomena freely, innocently as a child. And then it happened. Right? Now, if you can spend all your time like reading all the books about magic and occultism and radionics and everything else on the face of the planet and thinking, okay, well, I really, really, really want to do this. And then you start to have a few weird experiences, and some of these experiences may correlate with some things that was mentioned in the book, but you being a primitive little monkey human being, you latch onto it, just like that. And you think, right, that's proof it works, or something along those lines. No. What has happened there is you've come across a similar phenomena which has some defining characteristics which seems to fit what someone else has said. Look at it from the position of innocence. Okay. You don't know enough. You're exploring things. It's almost as if to say, like, let's say you were in physics lab in school and you've done your first electrolysis experiments, all of a sudden you're convinced you're a physicist. Or let's say a 10-year-old kid who plays computer games is convinced he's a computer scientist. Someone who's just like lit a yellow candle on a Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock has convinced themselves they're a magician. I mean, no, stop it. Go on a path of deliberate self-development. And this has got to be of a type which helps you to have sensitivity to the inner workings of your mind and also of your body and also of your being. So therefore it has to start from things like mindfulness, which provides you with a certain level of awareness of the changes happening on inside the mind, the thoughts which arise spontaneously and so on and so forth, which later in experience could then possibly be used in a divinatory sense in the form of some varieties of spiritual healing and also some varieties of, well, basically all kinds of stuff. Spiritualism and that kind of experience can be brought about with the relaxing and the clearing and the calming of the mind and a change of perspective, which you come to a bit further on, and then weird things start to happen. Okay, I mean, what happened to me then at that time in my life when I saw that I had that guide experience, I didn't know what to do with it because I didn't even know if I was dreaming or not. It seemed like I wasn't dreaming actually, and that was a genuine guide experience. So I really think that starting off with mindfulness as a practice you carry on throughout the rest of your, in inverted commas, magical, spiritual, whatever you want to call it, journey, has its importance when it comes to the building of sensitivity. Doesn't matter how long you take over this, with the passage of time and with repeated application, you develop more understanding of how you operate, what is going on inside here, and also how that connects to your thoughts and your feelings and issues and trauma. I mean, it can be a very a beneficial healing experience. It doesn't completely cure you of any mental problems or whatever, but it has a healing beneficial experience, balancing your emotions, balancing your thoughts, balancing your feelings. Once you've got to a certain stage there, then you can kind of like play with other stuff. All right, it's not a question of it's not. This is not a clear-cut like educational course I'm giving you here. It's a question of a gentle flow, picking up different ideas bit by bit and expanding upon them, building up what you are and what you can do and what your practices are and what your thoughts are about your practices, and then seeing where you are, where you would like to go next, and seeing if you can get there. And if you can't, then you have to change tack and move your life in a different path and work out what your particular genre or species of like energy work or magic or spiritualism happens to be, taking into account the way in which you're put together. But I think that it starts with mindfulness. I personally got into mindfulness much later in my journey, actually as a result of a lot of crises going on in my life, and I needed to. But I suddenly thought to myself, this is interesting because like I should have been doing this earlier on. I should have been taught that. All right. Firstly, there's no point in worrying whether magic works or not. We're dealing with energy work here, which can be of use, but it's not necessarily essential, but it will be of importance to your growth with the passage of time, and you will be able to do other things with it bit by bit, but we can't say what as of yet. Not it works. And that, you know, you should be going into mindfulness circles and meditation circles. You should be like downloading mindfulness apps on your phone and practicing them bit by bit, you know, whenever you can. So I regard that as being like the first stage of development. Typically speaking, when you get involved in the pagan magical community, they go on about things like path working exercises, the visionary journey, and they call it like you know, a magical exercise or a shamanic exercise. And it's essentially going into meditation and having a visual journey. That in its own right, I would not regard as being a magical exercise in its own right specifically. But it does train your visual imagination and trains your perceptual imagination. Sometimes when I used to do this, I could not visualize it, but I would feel it. All right, so it's like I'm going through the journey, but I'm feeling the presence of objects and characters in it. In sensing them. So for me, it became much more clairsentience and trying to work out what that sensation was and what it actually meant. Then I could find a way, occasionally, right, of bringing my mindfulness, receptiveness to what's going on inside my mind on at the same time, kind of, with the perceptual visual journey, and then things came into me which seemed to act like communication. It's difficult to say. But that seems like that's something which brings you into a level of engaging with the imagination of the universe, the consciousness outside of the physical. But that's only engaging with it. So as far as development is concerned, mindfulness first, then you can play with your path working visualization exercises. Right? Then what your next kind of like direction could be, will be moving on to opening up. Right? And that involves, you know, doing things with the chakras. I don't care whether you believe in chakras or not. Just open them. Just do it. Okay, if you want me to do a video about that, then I'll go into a video about that. Whilst I'm doing this little series, you might as well just like write stuff in the comment section of Nick, I'm really, tell me stuff and I'll tell you stuff. Okay. So, mindfulness, path working out the chakras. Then I think you then move on to the ascending meditation stuff. Because I out of all of the various different like extreme ways I've tried to adjust my state of consciousness for the purposes of attempting weird stuff and psychic vision or whatever you want to call it, that particular thing, which I did when I was in my teens and had weird experiences happening then, and then learned later on in life that this is a real thing that was done like in the ancient times. And hey presto, there was this guy who was originally called Enoch from the Bible, who was really, really good at doing that. And that's why they eventually called him the second Yahweh or the Archangel Metatron. Right? So there was me doing stuff which is like from Second Temple era, like Holy Land shit. And I was doing that in my bedroom. It really is difficult to try and put this stuff into words in a clear-minded context because we're not dealing with clear-minded things which can be understood 100% in terms of physical flow. And that's why it's the training and it is the direct personal experience with these things which seems to create the environment whereby something weird could happen with the passage of time. And it is the passage of time. Remember when I talked about doing the astral projection in accordance with the instructions of Sylvan Muldoon and Harewood Carrington in the book of The Projection of the Astral Body, which I carry on about because it's bloody good. It took me 2 years for me to get the direct experience, and that was when I was, a lot younger. I haven't been focusing on that particular part of my development for quite a while, but never mind. So, back to the subject. It takes time. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be quick, there will be frustrations on the way, and you will receive a lot of confusing and conflicting information, especially from those who are really, really passionate about this stuff. Who you don't have to listen to, because most of them are just like people who've got things wrong with them. Seriously, they are the ones who possibly ended up involved in various different forms of New Age religions and spiritualities because they needed healing, but they didn't know how to heal themselves specifically, sufficiently enough to be able to then go out into the world and help to heal other people. They don't care for the advancement of human knowledge. Alright? The ultimate science which could create omnipotence. I've got to make sure I pronounce that correctly. This video is going to require some editing, Nick, isn't it? Yes, it is. I mean, my journey's actually been quite confusing in lots of different ways. But I've kind of like come down to an understanding of things from this point of view. So once you've done the opening up of the chakras, and you experimented with that and played with that rather a while, then use your intention. Okay, this is after a period of time. Okay, take as long as you want to develop this stuff. It's not essential. It's not the thing which is going to provide you with the money you need to provide lunch for your family on a Tuesday. Okay, it's not that essential to your life, but it has importance, and there's a difference between things which have importance and things which are important in your day-to-day life. Okay, the things which have importance in this particular case deals not just with yourself. It also deals with everyone else around you. Okay, so you can go through the opening of the chakras, you can set your intentions, you can use the setting of intention for the purposes of adjusting your sense of spiritual perception if the meditation is deep enough or high enough that it can almost like open up a sense of receptiveness inside your being, which means that you will get glimpses coming through, you will get stuff coming through. Sometimes I'd say it's difficult to control, otherwise I'd say it's almost impossible to control because we're not dealing with something which is as easy to control. Remember my analogy of like the sports teams in the previous video? The circumstances around you, the energetic environment around you, the energetic environment and the biochemical environment of your body and your brain changes on a regular basis. Therefore you cannot treat this the same way as you would treat a physical machine. This is not like an electronic device which you can use, which you just set into a particular program will have a particular effect, in this particular case making strobe lights flash. Okay? It's not a machine. It's a dynamic experience. It's a flow. Some people describe it as a dance. Barbara Ann Brennan describes her operation with the energy field as being a dance of an ebb and a flow, things changing, moving all the time. So nothing is constant. What you'll of course notice is that by now I haven't actually said anything about circle casting and what colours of candles should be used. Well, in this particular series anyway, you know, I'm not going into that because it's not necessary as much as you might think. There is rationale and justification for creating a psychological environment for which you can do more weird stuff. That's why people can be much more prayerful when they're in church, and when they're at home they're still just like agonizing about paying the council tax. I don't want to use the phrase, once you've reached that level then you can do this, that and the other. Because it's not a question of reaching levels. It's not a question of a promotion, it's not a question of an award, it's not a question of a level of initiation which is being given to you by some kind of institution which for some particular peculiar reason you particularly fancy at the moment. It's kind of like more the way in which you're living, the way in which you're growing, the way in which you're thinking about the ebb and flow of energy around you, or what you're feeling, what you're sensing, how you're expanding your ability to observe, and how you're thinking more about what the various different experiences that you're getting could possibly be saying about your the world you live in, about your very being, and about the very being of the entire universe, and why consciousness is so rare but important. I mean, some people say that one of the reasons to get involved in magic is to find God. And as your mind carries on expanding with the ideas, with the passage of time, I'm an old-ish guy now, okay? With the passage of time, things change in your perceptions, and you do expand your mind rather a lot about lots of things. I don't think that this is necessarily something which changes people and makes them better for society or anything like that, no. I think that this is what people need to do if they are going to consider themselves to be diligent researchers into nature. And being a diligent researcher into nature, you should not stop your search. Ever. The kind of like low magics that we deal with, you know, and which I do for a living, such as tarot and the rest of it. It does good. It does good in the world. Just only last week I was saving someone from a bloody awful marriage. But always we have to be thinking about what is the next step, and what is our next step of thinking about this, and what is our next step of understanding about these things. And then there will be change and growth. So that's kind of like what I think about development, a process over time. You've also got to be looking after your body. Your entire nervous system is somehow like a receiver of whatever the heck it is. So that's got to be kept good. Your body's got to be kept as good as you can, really. I mean, I've met people who said they were magicians and they weren't living healthy lives. My point there was, okay, you think you got the thing which can work and it can do all this, that and the other, what are you going to do to try and make the results happen? Okay, it's not a question of like, I read it in a book somewhere that you got to do this, that and the other ritual, and then hey presto, it'll just work. No, that's called being a little child in your bedroom playing with your toys. That's called play acting, that's called theatre, that's called following a tradition, and let's be honest, all traditions were invented. So we have to think outside of the traditions, because the traditions may make you feel cozy and give you a sense of identity, but also they will not necessarily help you. And the dogma and the creeds and the groupthink of the groups associated with that particular imagery could also be affecting your perceptual reality when you're getting into these experiences. You might want to use these things as a tool, but they can be a distraction. And sometimes, you know, like even with like the music that you're listening to in your meditation, can have an impact upon how your character and your emotionality is developing as you carry on moving forward and working on like you know, all of the depths of the human mind and soul and spirit and being. Alright, we can leave that there for now. The next video will be coming up into something much more to do with the operation of things, the way in which things seem to be in terms of what, the way in which it seems to flow, the way it seems to happen, with the aspect of it which is instantaneous and the aspect of it which is not instantaneous, and the aspects of it which is like too difficult to cognitively work out in total clarity. But I'm going to try and explain that, and then I'll try and explain those components and how those components operate in things such as radionics, Reiki, spiritual healing, and all the other fun stuff. And then we can talk about the glossy stuff. I want people to understand it objectively. I want people to see that this is like part of nature. I want people to understand that this is not something you should be terrified of. I want people to understand that this is nature. This is a facet of nature of which you have some kind of interest, or should have, because you have a human brain and human consciousness, and therefore you are somehow part of this thing. And all human consciousnesses are somehow interconnected, which is quite a complicated concept to take on board. Anyway, I'll speak to you in a bit. Chill out, be a child of peace, love and harmony, and don't go around saying magic works, or I'll be really, really cross with you.